Okay. A 4-star general issues a memo saying, and Mike Pompeo has been talking about this on the broadcast a lot, so was Grinnell. Concerns about preparations for the next conflict. The next fight, he says, Wes, is China. This is a memo that is actually dated today or tomorrow, and it's being released.
Yes, and in this memo from this 4-star general, he is head of the Air Mobility Command for the United States Air Force. He has thousands of troops and thousands of airplanes under his command. He not only says, we will go to war with China, he's very precise. He says we will go to China in the year 2025. Predicting a war and the timetable of a war, as someone has said, is a fool's errand. And I understand his sentiments, but a general's job is not to predict war. A general's job is to prepare for war. And the Department of Defense immediately distanced themselves from his memo, which was leaked out. He sent it to all of his subordinate commanders. And they say that is not DOD policy. But the real concern, and this is where the general's sentiments and his concerns, I think, align with most Americans, and that is, his job is not to predict war, but to prepare for it. And the United States is woefully unprepared for any kind of conflict.
Has the conflict in Ukraine impacted our preparedness?
Absolutely it has. We live in a world where we have not only Russia's aggression in Ukraine, we have Russia's aggression in general. We have Iran's aggression towards Israel. We have the potential for China to invade Taiwan, our ally. And while all of this is going on, we are critically short on a lot of weapons platforms and ammunition because we have sent so much of it to Ukraine. Our inventory is lower than it's ever been. And in most cases, with our arms and ammunition, the production in the United States has not picked up to replace these items. We should be right now, and I think this is, the general didn't say this, but it's part of his concern and it's implied there. Right now, we should be on a war footing as far as production goes. We should be preparing for a major conflict, and we are absolutely, at this moment, not doing that.
I want to read the first paragraph of this thing. It starts with, this comes from a 4-star general in charge of this command. He says, I hope I'm wrong. My gut tells me we will fight in 2025. Xi secured this third term and set his war council in October of 2022. Taiwan's presidential elections are in 2024. The United States presidential elections are also in 2024 and will offer Xi a distracted America. Xi's team, reason, and opportunity are all aligned for 2025. We spent 2022 setting the foundation for victory. We will spend 2023 in crisp operational motion, building on that foundation. If you want to know what the operational motion I demand looks like, look at what the Total Force Team Charleston did in January. Then he says commander's interest, go faster, drive readiness, integration, and agility for ourselves. This is the first of 8 monthly directives from me. You need to know I alone pen these orders. This reads very bizarre. Now, I'm not a military person, but it does read very bizarre. Is that how these things are written?
That is his format for military memorandum is precise. I've used that same format many, many times. It's not the format, it's what he's saying. I mean, it sounds a lot like...
Is he in the position to say this? I'm not questioning it.
Yeah. I don't think so. And that's why the Department of Defense distanced themselves from his statement. Again, I go back to this. The bottom line is we're not prepared for war with China, and this general knows it. But you cannot...
Well, then he's sending a warning sign. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but you cannot go outside of the chain of command, especially when he's not one of the 11 combatant commanders. He is a 4-star general. You can't go out of that chain and precisely predict the year that a war is going to start. I respect this general, who I personally do not know. He's a graduate of Auburn, for you Auburn fans, ROTC. But on the other hand, while I respect him, I think this is the kind of thing that he has been all he can be, as we say in the Army, and this probably will be his last assignment.
You know, it's interesting. Mao Ning, who is the China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson, this was a speech he gave yesterday.
It must be pointed out that the U.S. cannot ask for communication and cooperation while interfering in China's internal affairs and harming China's interests. The Taiwan question is at the very core of China's core interests. The U.S. side should never attempt to cross this red line.
I mean, it's a warning sign. from the Chinese.
And this four-star general
Government.
is not the only senior officer that has alluded to this. The chief of naval operations in his Senate confirmation hearings just last year said that war with China, the potential for it, could come sooner than we think. So he's not alone, but that precise prediction may come back to really bite him. In the meantime, China is spending billions and billions of dollars building up their military, and our DoD budget is pretty
Can
stagnant.
I ask another question here? It's no disrespect, but if this is really the plan of action here for fleet forces, why is this public? Why do we have a copy of it? I mean, seriously. Why would I want that when the Chinese government is threatening us? If you cross the red line of Taiwan, you're going to be in a conflict. And I've got a general saying this is what we're going to do. I mean, I'm no disrespect to the general, no disrespect for the Department of Defense. But why do I have a copy of this? It reminds me of, these are classified documents, except you go on, and then they're not.
This is the kind of thing that should be classified if he's going to say it. And on the other hand, it's the kind of thing in my military experience, and I certainly was not a general officer, I retired as a colonel, but this is the kind of thing that my commanders would say to us in a meeting, in a skiff.
Different.
And tell us.
Different than sending this out to everybody under your command.
You know when you send a memo out, it's going to go public.
I don't get it.
Well, I also think, too, part of this buildup, because this is not, it's China going after Taiwan. It's not China bombing the United States. So it's whether or not we come to the defense of Taiwan, which we said we would, but do we make good on that? And I think that's a 2-year conversation with the American people right there. You'd have to start prepping Americans now on why we go to full-scale war with the Chinese. And as he used the word, defeat China. Think about what that looks like, 1.3 billion people. I mean, what does that even look like on paper? What does that mean? Does that mean a regime change? Does that mean defeating the Communist Party?
We're not putting military troops on the battlefield in China.
No.
Okay, can I ask another question here? Do we know that this is real? I'm serious. I know it's getting covered everywhere. We know this is real.
It's being reported as real by major news sources, not just fringe sources.
Well,
because let me tell you what subsection C says, okay? All commanders will acknowledge this order directly to me immediately. This sounds like, then report all 2022 accomplishments preparing for the China fight and forecast major efforts in 2023 through the command change by close of business February 28th, 2023.
That is how memorandums sound in the military. It's just that it's not. You don't normally predict a specific date for a war.
So we've got a general sending out memos on here's our war with China. This is what you're going to do, and I've got a copy of it.
Yeah. And
okay.
And he's out of line, I think.
Okay. I mean, he's probably a great guy and served the country, and we should appreciate that. But something's askew. Let me just put it that way.